Hello, team. Welcome back to another Line War cast. Here's your map. Our two players today are Keaton901, who is spawning in blue right here, and Notorious Nubs, who is in red to the left. Very close spawn in the mountains. This could get hectic right off the bat. It likely will. This is the view that both players have. So Keaton and Notorious Nub knows that both players are super close. Nubs is going for two barracks, a factory, and an airport in the mountains. And Keaton's going for more of a ground-based army, going two factory tank openers here. Clearly, this is going to be the gas that Keaton's going to grab. Gas being very important for the tanks, obviously, that need it. I'd assume Keaton doesn't want to go for this gas because it's closer and it's not as safe. And for Nubs, I don't know if this... Gases have a anti-stealth property, and so I think for sure Nubs would see this one. Maybe this one will get away from vision, but I don't think so. We'll find out in a second. Nubs is going for helicopters out of this airport, and Sam's, which I like. I think this is a very defensive opener. The dig-in of Sam's is also good. I'm not sure if Nubs knows Keaton and has played against them to potentially go for like an anti-air opener. But the SAMs and the helicopters, I guess the synergy of the two things works very well together. Third barracks for Nubs, which I like. And really, like, spawn location-wise, Keaton in theory has the better spawn in the sense that Nubs is going to be kind of stuck on the left side of the map. It'll be very important for Nubs to break out through the middle or the top. And with the first helicopter out, let's see what Nubs can get done with it. Probably going to be 4 tanks, I'd assume, for Keaton here. And then maybe transition to something else. I mean, Keaton's going to see the helicopter right here. And there's that gas in the back. Economy-wise, it's important to check. So Keaton's at 308. And Nubs is at 320, which makes sense. Nubs has gone for a lot of backcapping. There's like essentially 3 full squads that are backcapping, which I like. I definitely do that in my games. Sometimes I get a little bit too greedy with it. And it'll be important for Nubs to kind of handle this situation well. With a helicopter, if the helicopter gets in on top of this infantry, then it probably will go well. And the helicopters can be used until there's SAMs out. And then it will be much harder. Nubs is kind of getting the good end of this trade. I'm not sure. So infantry have a bonus in the forest. We can see that with the tooltip here. And I like Nubs' positioning because it keeps their infantry in the forest, and Keaton's might be, though. It might not look like it, but maybe it just doesn't matter because Keaton has enough numbers on the top side of that fight. And this is where it kind of gets sketchy with all the backcapping groups. Because Keaton might be able to overwhelm this position, or at least make it a kind of scary moment for Nubs, who's moving the SAMs over, which is a great play to help reinforce this. The SAMs likely could even just be fighting here, potentially, but I understand that you wouldn't want to move the SAMs too far away from the airport. Helicopter's doing a great job to cut off this infantry in the south. Unfortunately, I need to switch to the Keaton view to see what Keaton's building. More tanks. Or these are still the 3rd and 4th tank. And if these tanks were to get around the top here, because for Keaton, when Keaton knows that there's a gas, I guess Keaton knows it's actually not this gas because the vision would have been granted already. Because I was going to say these tanks might just like run on this gas and then be able to kill the airport. This is where helicopters for me get impossible, and I can never handle them because this is tough to do. But perfect from Nubs. Perfect time to call them back. Great control to keep those alive. Keaton's going for a barracks in the south, which I do like. Because it's going to help put pressure on the base of Nubs and then also cap a little bit in the bottom, which probably becomes less important. First artillery pieces out for Nubs now, which will help out. 4 tanks, and Keaton is moving into artillery at this point. The SAMs can't get on top of the helicopters. This might turn into a tiny bit of a stalemate for a split second. And if we look at the economy, I think Nubs is probably going to be up. 392 for Nubs. And 416, I have no game sense for Keaton. Who I'm kind of surprised. I would have thought that these groups in the back, maybe because they've been moving through mountains and forests, and so they're going slower, whereas Keaton gets open field. Maybe that's why the income is a little bit off, or more off than I would think. Nubs cannot see this gas in the back, so the proximity isn't, it's not close enough to be seen even with that anti-stealth, and so Keaton can't see this other gases either. Keaton's going to send the tanks to the north, which is likely a good play, because if they were to dive on this production, the buildings are stacked very close together, which is good to defend against these tanks. Because it makes it so in general, Red will be able to group up the units around these buildings and body block these tanks, and also have more units shooting the tanks at one time. Great reaction from Nubs, who's setting 4 helicopters to the top. Certainly one tank will go down, the second one may as well. This is looking very scary for Nubs. The defensive line is huge and great, but Keaton is about to win this fight in the middle. Especially once these 2 artillery pieces show up. Keaton actually, so this is very interesting. Keaton's going for SAMs and artillery now, which is good. I think that's definitely the play. And if Keaton doesn't overextend, this could be very good. So this is a tough place to be in for the tank, obviously, that goes down. And as for more production buildings, there's nothing much. It's still 3 barracks, 1 factory, and an airport for Nubs. 3 barracks, 2 factory for Keaton. Very cool fight in the center. Both players doing a good job to kind of push and pull this. Push when they have numbers, and then pull back once the exchange changes. And these helicopters are super MVP, and Nubs is continuing to make helicopters. Helicopter swarms are, I mean, they feel certainly like a super high DPS unit. Like once you get like 7, 8, 10, 25, whatever helicopters, they just shred things because they hover above their targets, so they're always firing. Whereas strikers, they do a run and they have to fly around and come back. Obviously strikers it's different purposes, but the point being, Nubs is going to have if Nubs keeps these helicopters alive, these are wildly, wildly good. There's only 4 SAMs on the field for Keaton, which is enough to stop this number of helicopters. If they get grouped up, this one SAM can start trying to long-range snipe this helicopter. The missile of SAMs do less damage than the firecracking sounding machine gun, which is important to note. I think Nubs did a line command, so these helicopters are going to end up, like those 2 ended up proc into the SAMs, which is unfortunate. And in the south of this picture, the infantry attacking for blue is going to be able to get on this artillery. And so although I suspect the infantry would get cleared up relatively quick, they're still going to trade much better than they usually would, because there's no infantry to block the red artillery. Nubs is moving over now with it. This is actually a way bigger deal than I almost made it out to be, because if all of the artillery falls, that's a huge problem, because Keaton now has like 4 artillery pieces. Another factory goes down for Nubs somewhere. It's right here in the forest, so this is the 2nd factory at this point. Keaton's going for another barracks in the south. I like that there's 2 more factories for Nubs here, because Nubs probably sees, like, this is a relatively scary force. Or at least I would be sort of worried. And so going for the 2 factories, I think, is great. Barracks in the north for Keaton, which is huge, and is going to help the economy so much. 536 income for Nubs, 524 for Keaton. So maybe now these groups are paying off. The two tanks, I don't even know how they got there. They must have gone up the middle maybe, but Keaton doesn't even own any of these territories. Someone watching the replay more closely than I probably was like, how did you not see that they clearly went whatever way they went? But this is important for Nubs to clean this up, and this is where Keaton can really do a lot of damage, because sniping that like infantry that's trying to cap, it just hurts your opponent's economy. Like for Nubs now, there's one less group that is capping up in the north. That's like half as much income as quick as you're getting. And moving the helicopters up, I like this. It's going to be a high micro thing for Nubs, I think, to try to track down where the helicopter or where the tanks are. And if Keaton knew that the helicopters had left, this is the perfect play to push now. 3 SAMs against this much infantry and artillery is only gonna stop it for a little bit. Wouldn't be able to hold this entire push. And what I really want to see, I have to keep jumping between players' vision. So luckily for Nubs, that's enough helicopters to see the tanks. And what a fight. Here comes Keaton's 3rd factory in the mountains here. Mountains have a defensive bonus on the buildings, so this can be a very strong position for Keaton. And the infantry running in at this point is good for buying time, but it's not. I don't think it's going to clear it up because there's this much infantry. It's tough to say what Nubs, you know, quote unquote, should think about doing right now. Maybe grouping up the infantry and then trying to buy time for these 2 artillery pieces to show up. Keaton probably would have just kept pushing at that point, so it's hard to say. And to be fair, these infantry jumping in did buy a lot of time for Nubs to put down a 4th factory here, which I love, because this is turning into quite the battle. The tanks are done in the north. Nubs going for a barracks to help cap the northern part of the map, which is a super big W, I think, for like how quick this economy is going to be able to ramp up. And for sure, as we talked about before, Nubs is going to need to make sure that they don't get stuck on the left side of the map. So barracks in the north also helps out with trying to get across this northern part, which is going to be very difficult with the number of infantry that Keaton's going to have up there. Is this a last hit? Not quite. That helicopter is going to get home. 2 groups of 3 SAMs is the perfect number of things for Keaton here to deal with this number of helicopters. Because I think just over time, these helicopters have gotten whittled down a little bit. This is great for Nubs, I think. I mean, this infantry isn't close enough to be able to jump on the artillery quite like the first time, and now that there's 2 helicopters that can also help out. Income-wise, 608 for Nubs. And there we go, we have to switch to a different screen. 632 for Keaton. And this is a lot of stuff. There's another barracks down here. For Keaton, it's a good push. I think that's a good like Keaton going for that big push just now, I think is good because it's forced 4 extra barrack or factories out of Nubs, and Nubs is gonna have to push through a mountain. This is a lot harder because Keaton gets to stay at the base of this mountain or in the mountain, and then just defend here. Keaton's going for some industry, and is, I mean, I think at this point, I love that barracks in the north from Keaton. But I think Keaton's almost in a position where this is going to get way worse before it gets better. Because this push down the middle isn't going to... I mean, I don't think Keaton's going to be able to push to this base. Maybe Keaton could push to the north. Or, pardon me, Nubs push to the north. The vision isn't on the industry yet, and this is definitely relatively vulnerable if red were to push that way. To be fair to Nubs, I don't think Nubs could have stopped defending this. Like, there's no way that any forces could be committed to the north, but that could be an idea after this goes down. Because Keaton's gonna have to back up very soon here. There's a lot of helicopters that have gone down. It's been, I think, good movement by Nubs, but better movement by Keaton with the SAMs. And one thing I wonder is, like, this is going to be a lot of artillery that Nubs is going to be able to push, but if Keaton just makes a defensive line in the mountains, it'll be hard to get through this. And then if Keaton just wins in the top here and caps the whole right side of the map, that is a tough position to be in. That helicopter gets out. Very nice work. There's not a ton of infantry to provide, like, be fodder for these artillery pieces for red. But there's not enough infantry for blue to be able to jump on these artillery pieces, so it's probably fine. I wonder if... how this game looks if Nubs goes for strikers out of this airport. Because this is, I mean, everything is in range. The gas is in range too. Nubs could go down to the south and then hit this gas specifically. Or any of these buildings. An interceptor could scout for the base, but I don't know. I don't like to mix interceptors and strikers. I can't focus on sending them both out. It's too much multitask for me. And money-wise, Nubs is at 680 and no cash floating, and Keaton's at 748 with cash floating. So Nubs really has to go for it right now and really start trying to cap territory back. This is definitely the play in the north for Nubs to push, like we were talking about earlier. Interesting retreat line from Keaton in the south. I don't know. I guess it's just to get on. Okay, so no, it is just an attack move. And with red having 4 factories and blue having 3, I mean, conceptually red's gonna have more, although there are these 2 artillery pieces in the back on this factory haven't moved forward, which is ultimately annoying when it happens. Sam's fighting our infantry. Sams are gonna do fine here. Probably 1 Sam will go down if it's just a 5v3 like this. We're gonna check on the north part of the map in a second, but I can't imagine it's gonna look good for Nubs here. Yeah, Keaton's already going left. Well on their way to cap the right side of the map. And Keaton's going for their own helicopters. This is relatively high on the ladder. When I say relatively, like, this is very high on the ladder. So helicopter use, I feel like it's just the important thing is to keep it alive. And if you keep them alive, it's just it's extremely good. But as it stands, red only has 1 more helicopter. Or 2, rather, or whatever. Definitely not that heli swarm that would be ideal. I like the tank move from Nubs. I don't even like, I don't mind this dive from Nubs on the factory. I mean, in hindsight, it's not going to work, and these tanks are both going to go down even after 1 factory. But I wonder if Nubs was to just send the tanks in the back and check these gases or something. It's a good push. It's a very good push from Nubs here. And if I'm Keaton, if you are playing as Keaton right now, you're not really super scared because you know that you have the economy lead. But this is still something that needs to be dealt with effectively. Keaton has 60 more income, which is actually wild to me. I thought it would be worse than that. I guess finally Nubs is gonna round the corner, so maybe it's not as bad economically for red. As first thought, the infantry run by on the industry. I love this play because this middle push is going well for Nubs, so this is exactly when you want to be trying to hit secondary objectives. The SAMs being in the defensive line are a little bit of a problem here. And then here they go, the SAMs are going forward, and I like that they're a defensive line in the mountains. That would be such a strong position to be able to hold. Tanks going to the barracks is definitely the play to keep them moving. At least one of them moving. And now Nubs sees that there's the airport here. See, this is the problem about helicopters, especially when it gets later in the game. Like, how as Red are you expected to, like, see that and pull back those helicopters in time? So one's definitely gonna go... Okay. Whatever, just upstage me. I stand corrected, use helicopters. Because that was a super duper cool play, and with the pullback, tanks aren't going to be able to do much. There's the perfect number of units on the airport for Keaton to be able to deal with this. And this is the play, to keep these tanks just moving and putting them into open space. The crux of the game is here, really, is who wins this top part. And Nubs might have a lot. Nubs definitely might have, like, a lot of infantry to be able to deal with that. I didn't see that. That was the noise of Nubs running out of gas, which is relatively devastating. But there's, you know, so it's 2 tanks and 2 helicopters that can't fly. I guess that third tank on the building couldn't also move. So MVP for Keaton, who's made this one tank just so useful. That's probably the same tank that was to the north a while ago that I didn't see. So that's very hard to deal with. I don't know what Nubs could have done better there. That's just a great play by Red. It's unfortunate that these infantry are just fighting before they're grouped up enough to be able to take on blue here. Keaton lost 1 industry. And Nubs is at 860 economy and Keaton's at 894, so it's still very close. This is a super solid position for these SAMs. I mean, unfortunately, the defensive line in a situation like this, they don't quite reach far enough to hit the edge, but... And Keaton's going to go for this sweeping movement through the mountains, which I really like that Keaton's going to try to go this way with it, as opposed to just straight up into the defensive line there. One of the tough things for Nubs at this point is as more helicopters show up, Nubs is going to have to build more SAMs. And every time you build a SAM, it could have been a tank or it could have been an artillery piece. I've learned that from chat. Oh, and then this artillery line, something that was brought up in chat that's really sweet. I'm talking about the Twitch chat, SodaQuackers on Twitch. That's the shameless self-plug. But some people were bringing up to use blue lines for your artillery, so that when they're actually in this position, when they actually get here, when a unit moves into the detection radius of, like, this attack move, the artillery pieces will, like, fold themselves up and then redeploy, because the AI is, like, trying to attack the thing as it comes into range. I don't know if that made sense, but TLDR is blue lines for the artillery might get off a few more shots. Like, I don't know what the difference here would be. Anyway, something to consider. Because if artillery are missing shots, like, over time in these big battles, that could actually play out, like, and be a thing that's important. Beautiful play from Red to group up and have enough units to deal with that. It's still okay for Keaton. I mean, these infantry moving through the mountains, because infantry moves so much slower, especially in uncontrolled territory, they just have to eat these shots from this artillery the whole time. By that same token, these artillery have to, you know, move up into the mountain range against artillery that's already deployed. But because blue owns this territory, they don't move as slowly as red is. Helicopters in the north are going to try to snipe this gas, which is a huge play, and there's just not enough SAMs now on the production for nubs. In fact, there's really no SAMs, which is a problem. Gas into town on the way for nubs. And 944 income for nubs and 942 for Keaton. Like, props to both players. This is a very good game. This is all the spot. Like, all the spot. There you go. The game goes silent for this moment. That's all the map that Keaton can still cap. Whereas nubs is a little, like, running out of uncontested territory. So, in a sense, like, the incomes are similar, but nubs is on a little bit of a timer here. And so I like that nubs is going for the town to try to offset that. This is a lot of artillery. Artillery can actually shoot at helicopters, as discussed in a previous video. So it's funny when you see an artillery piece just snipe a helicopter out of the sky. This is a relatively wild move from Keaton, I think, to dive on this barracks. But I guess it's good because it's going to pull all these units out of the middle, and then Keaton goes for a push, so like that's a super pro move. Big fight here. Red has enough, but the reinforcement speed for red is way longer than for blue, because Keaton has barracks very close to that position. The helicopters are doing a great job to kind of help with this breakout attempt by nubs, because it's still very important for nubs to break out, but then nubs has to deal with all this, and this is a huge push. So the dig-in is smart. This is the game-winning move for Keaton, to go factory in 3 barracks here to really make sure. I mean, even if Keaton just stops nubs here and digs in or something, Keaton still has the whole right side of the map. So nubs has 3 helicopters here, 4 rather. And it's going to be imperative to keep these not allow these helicopters to get sniped by the SAMs, which, as we've discussed, is the impossible task. 4 helicopters from Keaton. We can probably see if the armies are relatively the same. So Keaton's at 978 income and 151 upkeep for land units. So the army sizes are relatively the same. And nubs is ahead on eco, which I mean, I guess I understand. I mean, part of the reason why I lose so many games is because clearly I'm not that great at eyeballing how many territories are. Keaton's making 766 from land, and nubs is making 855, which counts for towns. This is a very cool move for Keaton to make a push in the north. Like, let's check the lines. So this is what Keaton's thinking about this offensive. And I like that there is a breakout here. There's just not... the helicopters can help out a lot. There's only 1 SAM, so 2 helicopters should be able to take out 1 SAM, I believe. You just gotta believe enough. This could become problematic. I wonder if nubs just were to make like a defensive line right here with artillery, because Keaton seems really keen on going for this, which I love. And I guess at this point this is close enough that we gotta start jumping back and forth, but I'm pretty sure red's gonna be in trouble in the north just because there's combined arms now for blue, which is so important. Blue's got artillery and helicopters to the north, and it's just infantry for red. Look at that helicopter trying to Tokyo drift its way out of this, and just can't. This is just Sam's shred helicopters. There's half an hour left. And Nubs is asking for... Wait, what's like 1,000 income for Keaton, 1,100 for Nubs. Is Nubs winning at this point? This is looking bad for Nubs. The factory in the north is super good. 3 tanks on this much artillery, the tanks would actually win. I feel like if I've learned anything about tanks is that they can kill artillery super quick. Unfortunately, they're not fighting all at once. But this game's super close. Nub's making 334. Now less because something just went down. And like Keaton's more starved for cash. Love the industry from Nubs here. Keaton really needs a barracks and to just start capping this open field. Because the infantry will move so quick. I think that's where the discrepancy's coming from. Because imagine if Keaton had just invested a barracks on the right side. If the income would even be this close. It's good fighting. There's now, unfortunately, like, not too many SAMs for Nubs. This is actually the perfect amount of SAMs. And they're all in defensive lines, was super sweet. Missile on the way for Nubs. And Nubs has the money to afford this. I think this target command of this tank is kind of messing up with the effectiveness, because the second these tanks get like here, they just immediately beeline closer to the base instead of going the wide way around to hit the gas. That's a very tense moment. And Keaton still wants this barracks. Which is a great play to continue pulling units down to the south. What would be sweet is if Nubs went for like helicopters around the bottom to snipe these 2 barracks. They're definitely in range to do so. And if Nubs were to just grab, you know, like 12 tanks and move them all at once and do this, they'd probably be able to kill the airport and the gas. It's like that grouping, which is so hard to keep track of. Thankfully for Red, Blue is just running into this. And it's not going to work. And there's still no barracks on the right side. I mean, Keaton's got a decent way of down the map. I've played in games before where I forget, you know, entire part of the map exists, and maybe that's what's happened. Because this has been a super intense battle all game. With a lot of micro and like mind games going into this, so I mean even just focusing on this fight alone is enough. 2 more helicopters go down to the SAMs, 2 more tanks are going to go down to that grouping at that airport. With a tank, it kind of changes. A tank is super good here for Blue to be able to push through this. And units don't get the defensive bonus from the side, I believe. Definitely not from behind. So the fact that Keaton's been able to get around this is very good. More helicopters going down to the SAMs for Red. The nuke I still really like. Yeah, this tank is going to cause so much havoc. It's a really great play by Keaton on the tanks. 1058, pardon me, income for Nubs. 1146 for Keaton. And at this point, there's no easy contested territory for Nubs. Going for a city in the back, that's definitely the play, given the situation. I mean, for Nubs, it would probably be a very scary moment because you just assume that Keaton's going to be able to get all this. Yeah, this is tough that it's... There's not enough units to be able to go the whole way to do that defensive line. It's just kind of a tough situation. And you can feel it start to crumble now for Nubs. 1182 income for Keaton. And 1154 for Nubs. It feels like this is a very... I wonder what the units lost on this game was. Because with the incomes that close, you'd suspect that Keaton traded better. Helicopter in the north. I actually like the helicopters in the north airport. To try to chase down those tanks. And also, clearly the main battle is here. And I feel like helicopters are good in like off-battle scenarios or like off-massive battles. $12.04 for Keaton. Who, oh my gosh, this is triggering me. That Keaton still hasn't built a barracks on the right-hand side of the map. Not to be, I'm not trying to be critical or something, but certainly this, if there was one barracks built here 10 minutes ago, I mean, all of this would already be capped, or certainly a larger amount of it. I guess for Keaton, though, you definitely wanted those 3 barracks there. So maybe there wasn't enough money or something. I don't know, but this is now tough. There's a serious outnumbering of artillery for blue than for red. There's not enough infantry to be able to jump on this artillery. And I think one of the big things really is the amount of helicopters that were shot down by SAMs in this game. What we need is we need to see this. And really, maybe a missile wasn't the play. Maybe. I still don't mind it. A rocket's gonna be able to kill all the factories. That's an enormous moment if that could happen. But by that, that's a very large investment. 4 factory versus... No, that doesn't make sense. There's 4 factory versus 5 factory. So building a rocket at that point probably does make sense. Really, it's how many helicopters died this game. And maybe tanks to a degree. Nubs is gonna do the dope play, which is you send the rocket and then you GG. Yes, this is gonna be over. The artillery pieces coming in are going to stop. They're going to kill that infantry in the defensive line. The SAMs moved conveniently out of position. I think that missile actually spotted this. I'm not sure. At this point, Keaton can just rebuild a lot of this stuff. And if the rocket got it all, like if this was a fully scouted location, that forest base, and then all 4 of the factories got hit, could be a big play. I don't know if it would have been enough though. 1094 for Nubs, 1380 for Keaton. He was still just leaving. I love Keaton. Keaton's kicked my ass so many times on ladder. It's a very good player, I think. So I'm not trying to troll them by saying that. I just wonder how different it would be. Like, Keaton's at 1400 right now. Nubs is at 1080. Like, could Keaton have 2k by having all of this? Keaton has kept... There's only 4 helicopters. Did Keaton stop building helicopters? No. So, I mean, both, like, this is... Keaton's also losing helicopters. Which is obviously good for Red, but if there's a counter of how many both sides had lost, I'd assume... Like, these helicopters must just be accidentally just procking to the SAMs occasionally. Nice. And that's all, and you know, perfect timing. I think this is the game-ending move, really. Nubs could feel it. Okay. Nubs is like, okay, so now Keaton put it down, put that barracks down. I didn't even see this. Clearly. This is a very smart play. Saying the obvious, but I did not see that, and that would have been building for a long time. And all the infantry in the bottom left are going to just snipe the city and the industry. Super great game from both players. It's one of the more intense main battles that went through the whole game that we've seen in the Line Warcast series. So thanks to both, thank you to Nubs for submitting this in the match replays section of the Discord. Check out the Discord if you want to learn more about the game or talk to people, see what's up. Otherwise, as mentioned, check out Twitch. I stream it and other folks do too. Check out the category. Come say hello. Otherwise, good luck, have fun, and enjoy. Peace.